So this is part 1 in becoming the alchemist of your life. And the first part of this is entitled The Burning. And you'll see why in just a couple of minutes. But Ernest Holmes wrote in this thing called You will notice if you follow a few simple rules and methods carefully, that when thoughts of confusion persist in coming to the surface, statements of peace will neutralize them. When thoughts of fear assail, statements of faith will counteract their action. And when thoughts of unhappiness well up from within, thoughts of happiness and joy will transmute them through the alchemy of spirit. And this speaks directly to what it means to become the alchemist of your life, a co-creator with spirit, to begin to actively bring about the power to transform and transmute any of the conditions of your life into golden opportunities for spiritual growth and expansion. You know, your thoughts, your mental equivalents, are the laboratory of love that is your very life itself. So put your alchemist hat on for the next few minutes, and we're going to look at the stages of the ancient practice of alchemy and see how they metaphysically are applicable for life today. Prima materia is the first substance that we look at in the science of alchemy, if you will. In the ancient art of alchemy, before anything could be transmuted into gold, before any transformation was possible at all, the alchemist had to first locate the prima materia, the first matter, the original substance, the raw material from which life is being created, from which things emerge, and from which things return. And when we think about this in terms of metaphysical alchemy, these are the things in your life that you're working with to transform. The raw materials that have potential. And usually these things are the things in your life that are your greatest challenges, you know, the highly reactive material of your life. And in the science of alchemy, the philosophical mercury, the lead acetate, or the unrefined mineral salts were the prima materia from which the alchemists were beginning. So think about it in your own life, those things that you are calling forth to transform. So in spiritual alchemy, we engage with the divine spark of energy that unites all living things, and we meditate on the fundamental building blocks of consciousness. From the psychological Jungian alchemy, psychologist Carl Jung even expanded upon this alchemical idea, proposing that the prima materia represents the messy, the unformed circumstances of our everyday human experience. So through the process, he taught, through the process of individuation, or becoming independent in one's life, becoming one's full self in one's life, these rough experiences would become refined or are used to refine a greater self-awareness and meaning for your life. So the prima materia was described by the alchemists as this dark, chaotic, lowly, hidden in plain sight, overlooked material of life, precisely because it was that ordinariness of life. Lead, ash, the rejected stone, the thing you stepped over on your way to somewhere more important. And yet, this is the sacred starting point. Nothing can be transformed that has not first been recognized. So we can't skip this step in spiritual alchemy because gold only comes through the prima materia of our life, not around it. Metaphysically, prima materia can also be looked at as the soul before it has been shaped by fear or conditioning. So there's two levels. You can see prima materia can be seen as the stuff we're going to transform, but it can also be seen as returning to the foundation of ourself, the part of ourself that hasn't been conditioned by fear or accumulated the weight of life lived on the surface. It's that untouched place, the divine spark that never goes out, even when everything else appears to be dark. It's what remains when our armor falls away, when with the performing and the avoiding and the to-do list finally exhausts itself into silence. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He recognized that the alchemical process is not a literal transformation of metal into gold. It is actually the most precise map that was ever drawn of our innermost life. The prima materia for Jung was both the light and the shadow, but it was the shadow that he focused on the most, this unlived, unacknowledged, unintegrated parts of ourself. And it was never the enemy. It was never seen as something that should be continued to be extradited or pushed aside. It was the beginning, the raw material of the soul's fluorescence. Every genuine spiritual path actually begins right here, not with the gold, but with the stuff in the way, the stuff called to transform. So the invitation of the prima materia isn't often comfortable. It asks us to stop avoiding that which we've been stepping over in life. It asks us to actually pick it up, to say, oh, this too is being called for transformation. I'm calling forth for transformation. And this especially, because this is precisely, actually, it's the rejected, chaotic, the formless, the unfinished places within us that the divine has hidden the most luminous work. So the question is for you today, where in your life is alchemy most needed right now? And just sit with that question for a moment. You don't have to rush or just jump in. Just allow whatever's within you to bubble forth. And while you're thinking about that, I want to tell you a little adventure I have had personally with the subject of alchemy. In July 2019, my daughter Maya and I flew from her home in London to Amsterdam with the sole intention of visiting the Embassy of the Free Mind Esoteric Library. And in it was a display of artwork from the time of the Renaissance, with an alchemist working in a furnace. And this furnace was called the Athanor. And the Athanor is a small chamber that is used to tend to a fire. And this fire was built and cared for so it wouldn't destroy what was placed inside it, but rather it would refine it. The purpose of an Athanor fire was to burn away everything that wasn't essential or pure so that the luminosity of the object could be revealed. So coming back to that thing that you're tending in your life, that thing that is really coming up for transformation right now, where you would like to apply alchemy, what if you're being asked to tend to the pattern challenge, the dis-ease, or to look more deeply at it? Most of us are in the fire of life with something. And maybe it's a relationship that is calling for transformation. Or perhaps it's a career that is no longer aligned in some way. Consider your beliefs about yourself. Maybe that's where your alchemy, the call for alchemy is arising, about what is possible for your life. What wants to be quietly tended in the fire of transformation? And as you consider that, the question that the alchemist asks is not, why is this happening? Or why is this here in my life? The question that the alchemist asked is, what is being refined? What is being called to be refined in me? There's a world of difference between these two questions. It's the difference of suffering with fire or working with fire. Suffering fire is all about resistance, fighting the heat, desperately running away when it's time to pause, to stay with mindfully, to observe, to feel. In this part of the fire, there's a sense perhaps of victimhood, or perhaps a sense of abandonment, or perhaps a sense of something's being destroyed by this condition or challenge or fire. But when you're working with transformational fire of life from a point of consciousness, willingness, and surrender, into the burning away and letting go, there's an opportunity for spirit to be recognized in the midst of something, in the midst of and allowing spirit to shift what is before you. In that moment, you've truly put on your alchemist hat and you've moved from the victim consciousness into what Michael Beckwith teaches in the 4 stages of consciousness as the allowing spirit to work through you and as you. So there's these 4 stages of consciousness. He has the first stage, which is life is happening to me. Then there's the second stage, that life is happening by me, where I'm more efforting with my will. And then when you really work with the spiritual practice and move into the other stages, it's life is moving through me. And then at the final, deepest level of consciousness, life is happening as me. And these stages could really support us in understanding. You know, they circulate sometimes within the span of a day. You can go, I know for myself, I can go from to me to as me in my own consciousness, just as I'm working through the very challenges of my life. So in this state, we want to move from I didn't choose this fire, when we feel that life appears to happen at us and at the object, at the level of circumstance, rather than our own co-creation. And we want to move then from that to maybe by me, you know, I'm really actually working with life for this, to through me and as me. But Beckwith is clear, and it's very important. The to me stage isn't a failure. It's not a sign that something's gone wrong. It's the burning ground where the alchemist first awakens. It's the Athanor doing its first work, the fire. And it's the moment when we begin to ask, what is this fire trying to show me? When we start to ask that, we've already begun to move. We've already taken the first step into more from to me to more through me. So this is alchemy. This is the turning point of the single shift in question. And we stop asking life to stop burning, and we ask, what is the fire releasing and transforming? So in these next parts of our alchemical study, we're going to be focusing on what Ernest Holmes taught, that there is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. And he was equally clear that before we can fully open to that power, we have to release what's blocking it. So this stage, or this focus, as you work with this part 1, is to release or to allow the fires of transformation, perhaps the fire of acceptance, to move through your life, to make room for the new. Neville Goddard said, that remarkable mystic of New Thought tradition, and who was also an alchemist of thought in and of himself, taught that assumption is the fundamental creative act, that what we assume to be true about ourselves and our world becomes the world we inhabit. But Neville was also unflinching about this, that before the new self can emerge, the old self must be released. He called it a death of the old man, not with morbidity, but with reverence, because you can't assume a new identity while you're still clinging to the old one. And we can't step into the new story while we're still defending the old one as the truth of who we are. So fire of alchemy is the transmutation element of our next becoming. So here's an invitation of spiritual practice. This week, perhaps consider one belief, one identity, one story about yourself and your life that is currently ready for the fire. Just one. You may know immediately what that is, or it may be something that you've been trying not to look at. But once you've identified that version of yourself, you're going to gently and insistently begin to consider the release of that. And when you've named it, when you've seen it clearly, in the furnace of your honest awareness, I invite you to shift to the question away from not why is this happening, but what is being refined within me. And write it down if you can. Sit with it. Let the question do its work, because the question itself is an act of alchemy. The question itself is stepping into the new role of one who tends the fire rather than one who is being consumed by it. So now let's close our time together with a brief practice, a moment to meet the fire, not with fear, but with this confidence of the alchemist who knows this flame is in my own service of becoming. So go ahead and find a comfortable position and allow your eyes to gently close. Take one slow breath in through your nose. Release it fully through your mouth. And again, breathing in, letting your body soften with each exhale, and bring to mind something in your life that feels like it's ready to be put into the furnace of transformation. Perhaps an old story or a fear. A version of yourself that once served but doesn't belong to who you are stepping into the who you are becoming. Or something that you've been resisting. Just place it gently into this athanor, this furnace of transformation, for transmutation. And as you allow it to softly burn and be tended in the fire of your awareness, just see what you can witness. And perhaps place a hand over your heart for that gratitude of release, that letting go. Here in this stillness, just feeling and knowing that Spirit is right here in the presence of this moment, at the heart of all that is. And with that awareness, we open and allow, feeling and knowing that Spirit, that power greater than us in the universe, is the ultimate power. And all we do in this moment is just release, let go, and allow. Feeling and knowing that that alchemy of transformation, that transmutation through our own intention, through our own prayer, is always at work. It's with great gratitude I release this prayer, allowing it to be so, knowing it is done, for we believe it to be true. And so it is.